G'day everyone, welcome back to the Before I Go podcast. And as is often the case, I tend to sit sometimes and think, what would my kids love to hear? If I am at my last couple of hours or days, what do I want to share today? What would I like to leave them? So this one's for the kids and for the little kid inside all of us as well. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you get plenty out of this. So it's taken me about 40 years, I think, if I'm being really honest, to get to a place where I am genuinely thrilled and ecstatic for the successes and for the wonderful things that happen in other people's lives. Now, I'm not some kind of cold-hearted narcissist that has never relished in the delight of other people's fortunes, right? I love my family, the people that are close to me. I found them the easiest ones to really get up for and really be thrilled for. But if I look outside my immediate intimate circle of people who know me and who I'm invested in and who are invested in me, and I just cast the net out a little wider, there have been times when I've probably done what I think is the right thing to do, or I had a belief is the right thing to do, which is, to be happy for other people's successes. But if I dig in, have I really felt joy in those moments? Have I really just buzzed from seeing something wonderful happen in the life of another person? Sometimes I probably have, and sometimes, if I'm honest, I think I've just been going through the motions. I can wholeheartedly say though, in the last couple of years, maybe slightly longer, man, I have just binged with every wonderful emotion you can imagine when I have had stories or shared moments of triumph, or even just raw connection with other people. So it has taken me a while for this, and the reason it's taken me a while to get there, as far as I can tell, is that I had a lot of insecure thinking. I did think for a long time that the world and our experience of it worked as an outside-in process, that what was happening out there that I could observe or see or process with my five senses kind of went from the outside in. And it's not really until I've been able to articulate the inside-out nature of life, where what's inside me comes out into how I experience the world. It's not until I really clicked that that's how this game works that I've started to, I feel, exhibit proper empathy for anyone, really, anyone that I'm lucky enough to be alive with. So a bit of a long intro, but a couple of examples have happened recently. I had a mate just in the last couple of weeks, and you all know who you are when I'm going to talk about you if you're listening, who I got on a Zoom call with, and he didn't have to say much. It was pretty clear on his face and in his eyes that he was in love, and I mean in love. And I said, "What's going on, buddy?" And he said, "Yeah, I have found the one." And that was his first spoken word to me, apart from what his body and face was communicating. And I just listened to him, and I was in love too. Not to take it and try and say, "Give some to me," because I've got plenty of it. But I saw the guy in love, and yeah, he's found the one, and that is so good. I'm genuinely thrilled for it. I had another friend who got promoted at work, and I was just like, yes. And I wasn't going through these processes of empathy or congratulations just to try and do the right thing. I was just like, this is almost as if I am getting to go through them myself. I had another beautiful human in my life a couple of months ago just let me know that they had sold the most in a single week from their creations than they ever had before, and I was just jumping. I think I did actually leave the ground temporarily out of exuberance for them. And lastly, just in the last kind of 48 hours or so, news broke of two beautiful humans in a couple that I love that have announced their engagement, and I was just like, yes to love, like yes to connection. So it has taken a while, but man, I feel so good about that. I feel so good when I genuinely delight in other people's growth or triumph or insights, anything. Even when people are having aha moments, I'm like, whoa, I feel like I'm having them as well, even if I've had them before. So why has it taken me so long to authentically relish in another person's joy, right? We're taught that it is definitely a good or the right thing to do to be happy for someone else. But are you really? Like, are you really happy for other people? And can you give away your happiness for them without needing anything back? Like, could you genuinely just send a congratulations letter to someone and be just as happy if you never heard back from them saying thank you? So there's two reasons I think why it's taken me a while. The first is that I was under the illusion that we are separate. And that's a whole nother ball game. I probably touched on it on previous podcasts, so if you would like to get into that, backtrack through episode 1 or so. But the second and the most common cause, I believe, for my lack of sincere delight in another person's life, or sincere sorrow, right? Not just going, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, but when someone loses a manifestation of love in their life, be that in the form of another human being or the job or an animal, genuine empathy for and sorrow for somebody who is going through it. The reason why I probably haven't been plugged in with other people's journeys is because of one word, and that word is comparison. So I asked myself, why do we compare? And here's a few things I came up with. Ask yourself it. Why do you compare? I compare to define things, to label them. I compare to isolate some things, and I also compare to try and make sense of something, right? So you know that you do this. You start to attach characteristics and labels to things and identify objects or things or thoughts or feelings or whatever they might be. We do that to try and make sense of things, right? It's almost like I can make sense of one thing in the light or shadow of another. So I then went and thought, hang on a second though. What happens when we compare 100% of the time? Because sometimes when we compare, I don't know, there are anomalies that pop up, but 100% of the time when I compare, what do? When I compare, I separate. Just think about that, right? Every single time that I compare something, I am separating it. Could be one thing to another, one human to another, one experience to another. And I know that we might even say, okay, but what if we're trying to find commonalities between two things? The whole point is you've already started with two things, not one, right? Even if you're trying to pull things together through commonalities, you started with the belief and the assumption of separation, right? So comparison creates separation, and equally, separation creates comparison. So I thought, okay, well, why do we compare? And one of the main reasons that I can see utility in comparison is to decide, right? So imagine you're at the supermarket and you've got two apples in your grasp, one in each hand. Why are you comparing them, right? You're looking at one apple compared to the other apple. They're both apples. And the reason why you're holding them in one in each hand in the supermarket is to make a decision, right? Which one of these apples should I purchase and eat later? And which one am I going to put back? Or do I take both, right? Are you comparing them to apples you've had in the past? So comparison is not a good or a bad thing, right? It's a natural part of the human experience, and it helps us to be decisive and to understand things. So I was like, okay, I compare to decide. It helps me make choices, right? Comparison. But I then thought, what the heck? Decide is a funny word. What does decide mean? Where does decide come from? So hello Google, and off we went. I looked it up, and here's the meaning of the word decide. It comes from the Latin word decidere. I had to look up how to pronounce that, so I'll give it one more shot for those of you who are fluent in Latin. So to decide comes from the Latin word decidere, which is a combination of two words, right? De, which equals off, and cidere, which equals cut. I'll say that again. Decide is a combination of two words, de, off, and kidere, cut. Literally means off cut. So we compare to decide, but when we do so, we are deciding to cut off. I just thought, ooh, that's interesting. I don't know if you find that interesting. I do. I use comparison to decide. And when I decide something, I am cutting off, right? I am either putting a beginning to something or an end to something. So I can see how comparison is really, really useful when I want to pick a good apple to buy and eat. But when it comes to humans, using comparison to cut ourselves off from each other may not be in our best interest. In that sense, we compare to isolate, right? And everything that I am experiencing, and I hope you experience about our true nature, wants the opposite. We don't want to be isolated. We don't want to be cut off, right? We want to connect, and we want to be connected with each other. So, here's what I came up with, right? We compare to understand, but we stop comparing to connect. One thing that I loved reading and listening to, and I think I might have mentioned it before, but if not, just go out and get a copy of Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart. It's brilliant. And she dives into comparison in a beautiful way. And a couple of snippets that I'll share with you, which were the aha moments from me when she talks about comparison. The first thing is that comparison happens to us. So give ourselves a little bit of grace, right? It's not something you can control. We're not trying to make a demon out of it. But it happens to us, right? Sometimes I am aware when I'm comparing myself to others, but most of the time it's so fast and it's so subconscious that it almost becomes like automatic programming, like a filtering system where I'm constantly sending one thing to the left, one thing to the right, instead of realizing where it all comes from in the first place. So there's no real point trying to control or avoid comparison in the first place. That's really hard work. However, when comparison does arrive, we get to choose what meaning we attach to it and what action we take. Right? When comparison arrives, which it will, we get to choose what meaning we attach to it, if any, and what action we take. So it's just becoming aware of it. I guess you could look at it and go, all right, suddenly it's raining and you didn't see it coming, but now you have a choice as to what to do. Do you want to find shelter? Do you want to dance in the rain? Do you want to open your mouth and have a bit of a drink? I don't know. You get to choose what happens when comparison arrives. And it's really important to just become aware of that. I think anyway. So here's Brené Brown's definition, which is far more eloquent than I could ever put it, but this is it. Again, I love it. So her definition of comparison is the crush of conformity from one side and competition from the other. It's trying to simultaneously fit in and stand out. Comparison says, be just like everybody else, but better. Oh, when I first heard that, I just got a little ick go through me, because it's this conformity and then improve on it. Doesn't that sound like a familiar narrative for many of us? One thing that I invite us to do, again, is just to be gentle, because comparison is learned, right? When we grow up, most of us are in systems where, it's natural, and then it's taken in a way that is not particularly helpful. So we use comparison a bit like a knife. And I say, is a knife a good or a bad thing? It totally depends on what you do with it, right? Knives aren't good or bad, knives are knives. So we can get pretty worked up, right? If we are comparing, particularly if we are looking over the metaphorical neighbour's fence, right? Judging our neighbour and comparing to a small sphere of people or things or experiences, and not stepping back and seeing the big picture. So as I was just thinking about this, going, okay, what do I want to talk about? What could I really give to my kids and the kids inside each of us to to just be a little more gentle with comparison. I remembered back to my uni days something that struck me and has stayed with me. I saw a pie chart of the world represented as 100 people. Some of you might be familiar with this. So as I was preparing for the podcast, I went and Googled it and was like, okay, what was this 100 people thing? And if you are interested, jump into the website 100people.org. That's the number 100 people.org, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I might be able to put the image up on this for YouTube for those of you who are watching. Back in 2006, as I was studying, the thing that I remembered from this, the world represented as 100 people, was that only one person out of 100 was going to be college educated. So here I was, starting my first year of a double degree, and I see this thing going, right, 100 people in the world, if that's what we were able to distill this down to, you would be the only one that is college educated. And I felt a mix of gratitude, of shock, and also a bit of shame, because I'd realised I hadn't been grateful until that point for the simple things of education and opportunity that came up. And that's why it stayed with me. I got quite the cocktail of emotions from that aha moment. And that's what comparison can do, right? It can help you see a bigger picture if you can step back a little bit. One of the other things I remembered was talking about wages, and I looked this up as well, and they've updated the stats now from 2006 to I think 2016, and one of the cool things was that number of people who've been educated has now gone from representing one person in 100 at a college level education to 7. So things are getting better, although I say that with a lot of caution in my voice, because I'm not so sure that we can extrapolate more people getting college educations as being a better thing. It's an interesting thing. Let's hope that they use the education for cool outcomes. So, sorry, a bit of a sidetrack there, but yeah, this world represented as 100 people also got me thinking, well, what's the wage, right, for the top 1% of the world? And recently, I think it was the Daily Mail in the UK, got a bit more information out of that and said if you earned $34,000 a year, you are in the top 1% of income earners in the entire world, right? Out of 8 billion people, if you earn more than 34 grand a year in full-time work, US dollars, you're in the top 1% of the population. I just think of the globe's population, and how many of us can quibble or get upset about the differences within that 1%. It really is just getting absolutely polarized by looking at your neighbor instead of staying and just focusing on yourself, right? Not worrying about what other people have or do or say, or represent, and just concentrate on yourself, right? Not to be selfish, but just to be okay and loving in your own skin. Love who you are. And from there, you'll absolutely be grateful for everything that you have. That will become the focus, not what other people have or don't have or can do or can't do, right? So it's pretty powerful stuff. On talent.com, when I was thinking about this 34 grand, and in 2023, this year, the average full-time salary in Australia is 69 grand a year. Right? That's the average full-time salary, and entry-level positions start at 57,000 Australian dollars per year. Or in other words, if you are in an entry-level position full-time in Australia, you're already in the top 1% of the annual income earned globally. The top 1%. Right? And here we are worrying about how to get A, B or C grades in school. I mean, by that standard, you've got a 99% on your exam and you didn't even know it, right? Stop worrying about the 1%. So I'm going to record an episode later on, I think, about gratitude. But I hope some of these things just sink in, right? Some of the perspective that I've been grateful to receive. So, one question that I did just stop with as well, right? I mentioned that comparison is a bit like a knife, which can cut or hurt, or a knife can help us prepare delicious food to eat. But do I really want to be grateful because of someone else's misfortune? Like, is that how I want to find gratitude? And equally, do I want to be jealous or envious because of someone else's fortune? So I don't really want that, right? I don't want my ups to be because of somebody else's downs, and vice versa. I don't want my downs to be because of somebody else's ups. So there's something a little bit deeper than that, right? And just remember, comparison helps us to decide. However, to decide is to cut off. What if we didn't have to cut off, right? What if we could experience genuine joy at the triumphs of other people, right? And what if we could share in the trials and the sorrows wholeheartedly and authentically with others and empathize with them, right? I think Brené Brown describes it as shared humanity. I would suggest that it's non-comparison, that's connection. True empathy, not just learned or acted out empathy, but really being in it and riding this wave with another human being, right? Not getting attached to it, right? I don't have to get attached to somebody else's sorrows or to what somebody else says, but boy, if I want to consciously go into the moment with you and be in it with you, right? I can't walk your journey for you, but I can certainly be right next to you as a witness to what you're going through. Yeah, that's certainly somewhere I'd like to be. So, you've also probably heard the saying, "Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself." Right? I thought about that when I was doing this thing on comparison. And the meaning of "judge not, lest ye be judged yourself" is not so much watch out, right? Someone will get you if you get them, right? This is not an eye for an eye. This is not do something bad and then somebody's going to do it to you or vice versa. It's deeper than that. When we say "judge not, lest ye be judged yourself," it's actually inviting and just whispering to us to go, have you realized that when you judge somebody else, you are actually judging yourself? Right? Because we are part of this shared human experience together, right? You are part of me and I'm a part of you. It's interdependency. It's a powerful place to live. Not independent or dependent, interdependency, right? It's the same way that a tree needs us to survive, and we also need the tree in order to be able to breathe. It's a very mutually beneficial relationship where I am very glad to have the trees around. So interdependency yearns for connection to be known so that we don't take it for granted. All right. So what am I going to say for the kids? Be gentle, right? And a little apology from me as one of the people who perpetuated the systems of hardcore comparison, right? Schooling kicks in hard when you are ranked based on A, B or C grades or how you go in certain races. Even in schools, when we stand people up in a line to go get in line from tallest to shortest, right? It doesn't necessarily mean anything. If you then make up the conclusion that I'm tall, I'm the tallest one here, which means I stand out and that's a bit weird, or I'm short, so I'm not going to be able to play basketball. The meaning you attach is up to you, right? But I do recognize that we are perpetuating systems of comparison and attaching a whole lot of meaning to them. So we rank each other and then we break a connection, right? So ultimately, comparison preserves personalization and individuality, right? Isolation and separateness. We compare to separate, and when we separate, we compare. So what do we do to connect? You have to get past the surface, right? You have to go beyond the material characteristic label world of things. If you really want to connect, we have to go deeper. And one small thing that I do, which is an exercise that I created called That's Me. This is really weird. I love it. I love being weird. I love being me. So the That's Me exercise, which I started to do spontaneously when I was going around going, hey, what if we aren't all separate? What if comparing ourselves and separation is just one way of seeing this world? What about a more connected world? I created That's Me. So I go and I walk around the supermarket, or I walk around anywhere, train stations, shopping centres, and when this occurs to me, I look at another human being, right, and I go, that's me. You could try this for a day. It's really, I don't know, give me a call, talk to me, and let me know what you find out. But when you start to look at other people, instead of seeing them as different, and you actually say, that's me, things get really funny and interesting. For example, I remember walking into Kmart at the shopping centre. Went through the doors and there was a lady there to greet me, and I went, "Oh, that's me." I went, "Today I'm wearing a blue and black dress, high heels, and wow, I got a tattoo on my neck. That's beautiful. I'm beautiful." Now I know that might sound insane to some of you, but when you do this, if you walk around and go, "That's me," and you presume connection first, instead of comparing and separating, if you presume shared humanity, you are going to feel pretty amazed and far less at arm's length to everything life has to offer. Suddenly our fragile thinking and our smallness in the way that we get around in the world dissipates. So that's me. Try going around for a day, looking at what we call other people and just going, that's me. That's also me. That's me. And see what happens. So that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this or got something out of it. Blessings to you all. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening and sharing this space with me. I really, really hope this has served you well, and it continues to do so for years to come. I love helping others, so if you would like to experience the power of creating together, please reach out to me. I'm here to help. And if you want to be on the podcast and leave a legacy, check out the contact details on my website, lyndenrochford.com, or you can find me on Facebook. I'd love to hear your story before I go. Wishing you so much love from the inside out. I'll see you soon.